Welcome to Be a Voice. This is Britt Carpenter on USALA Media. Thanks for joining me today. I'm stoked for today's show. I'm sitting here with one of my favorite people and one of my friends. I'm sitting here with Megan Cohen. Hey, Megan.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm well. I'm surprised that we were able to connect and keep an appointment.
I was really going to say, I was shocked when I texted you and I said, are we still on for tomorrow? And you actually said yes.
I was shocked you texted me to ask me that.
You ditched me.
Oh, get out of here.
You ditched me. It's not the other way around.
I could bring out my little book and I can show you all the pencil
I don't believe it.
Marks,
I want to see the proof.
I can.
Okay, I want to see it.
We'll bring it. Jeez, never easy with you. It is never easy
Did
with
you expect anything less?
I know. How's your mom?
She's great.
Does she miss me?
She does.
She does.
She does.
I love the fact that she knows me as like the nice man with the foul mouth.
I was going to say, yeah, not with the nice mouth.
No.
Nice man, bad mouth.
Yeah, that's all right. She's not around though, so hey, fuck it. We're good.
Oh, I'm telling.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm going to tell her. We're going to call her when we leave here and I'm going to tell her.
Megan, I have known you now for a little over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
We share so many things in common, but yet we walk such different paths, but same paths, and our lives have paralleled each other's, as many of people with our stories do. But who the hell are you? Tell people who are tuning in. There might be one or two people tuning in, so tell them, who are you?
Maybe, why don't you introduce me?
Well, I did.
Because I'm just really curious. Do you know everything I have going on?
Oh, I can tell you a lot about you.
I don't know.
Where do you want me to start?
I don't know. Let me hear it. Let's see what you leave out.
You want me to start here or in Detroit? Where do you want me to start?
All right. Maybe I'll do it.
Okay,
I'll do it. So I'm the founder of the Grace Project. It's a nonprofit that I started in August of 2020. Our mission is restoring hope through acts of kindness. I'm also director of business development for Promont Wellness, which is an outpatient treatment facility that opened about, I guess we're going on 4 months now. So 3 or 4 months, somewhere around there. I'm on the Reentry Coalition in Bucks County, the Bucks County Drug and Alcohol Commission, and the Board for Mission Philadelphia.
And you are a person in recovery.
I'm a person in recovery.
How long have you been in recovery?
Going on 4 years.
4 years?
July 17th, I'll have 4 years.
Nice.
Yep.
Is this the first time you can say you've had this type of long longevity?
I have never made it past 30 days until this last time. So it was 71 treatment centers and, no more than a month outside of jail or outside of treatment. So it's a miracle.
And it's interesting because you're talking about, you're coming up on 4 years, which is, 4 days is amazing for people.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to take that away from anybody. 4 hours is amazing.
Amazing.
I understand that, being, someone in recovery, we're advocates for that, and we will say that, and it's what we should say, but it's the truth. It really is. I mean, anybody who can put down and not pick up for an extended period of time, whether that's 4 hours, 4 days, 4 weeks, 4 years, is great. But for you yourself, a person under the age of 30 years of age.
Well, I'm 30 now. I got old.
You are now.
I turned 30. It happened.
You got old.
I got old.
You are. But at the time when you entered into recovery, you weren't.
Yeah.
You were in your mid-20s. You were at that actual 25-year-old age where most people start to pivotally think, what direction are they going in life? And here you were in 70, how many?
71.
71 treatment centers by the time you were 25.
26, yeah.
26. The hell's a year when you're in that many treatment centers. So when did you start your substance use disorder? When did this kick into overdrive? What was,
it's so fun because everyone asks that and I don't necessarily know when I can say it kicked into overdrive because I think for me, I displayed a lot of the alcoholic tendencies very early on. When it comes to actually using substances, I drank alcoholically throughout school. Right when I started drinking, my obsession was constantly, started with the weekends. Who's going to get alcohol? Where are we going to go? And then it was every single day, while I was in high school. I didn't start doing hard drugs until I graduated. But leading up to that point, the way that I would smoke weed and the way that I would drink alcohol was excessive. And my life revolved around that. So I don't know if I would say end of middle school, beginning of high school, or I would say it really depends on which part you're asking about. But the hard drugs started the summer that I graduated.
All right. So it was that gradual build up to it.
Yes. And then just jumped off a cliff and really downhill.
All hell broke loose.
Yeah. Quickly.
Yeah. And so it started with the drinking. Mm-hmm. What age?
Well, I started smoking when I was 13. I think I started drinking to get drunk. I mean, I would have like a shot here and there just to like be cool when I was younger because my sister was older. But I think like the actual partying really started, all of it, about age 13.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, and then you look at that about age 13, roughly to the time of 26 years of age, you know, you really went on a journey.
I did.
You really had this crazy journey. And there was a time where, you know, like most people in an active substance use disorder, you lost yourself.
100%.
And what was it? Can you pinpoint it? Can you?
What, that made things change? Or, you know, I don't really know. I think what it got to is like, people around me stopped depriving me of my bottom. I think it's so natural, like when you love somebody, to want to help them. And sometimes it can be to the point of enabling, and everybody's different too. So what might work for somebody won't work for someone else. So, you know, the people that I loved and the people that loved me were kind of trying every possible route before finally saying like, figure this out on your own. You know, and I think when it got like, cause I'm very family oriented. So like not having my family, cause they tried. And I was always like, Mom's never going to kick me out. You've met my mom. She's great. She loves me so much. So, you know,
She loves me a little more, but
it's possible. You're probably, she probably does. All right, whatever. You know, so she loves me. And it's like, you know, I'm like, she's never going to kick me out. So as long as I go back home with Mom, I'm going to have a roof over my head. My grandmom, you know, is like a second mom to me. She's also my world. And I always knew like if Mom was mad at me, I have grandmom there. So I never saw myself getting to a point where like even my closest family was kind of saying like, not turning their backs on me, but saying like, hey, you need to figure this out. And when you do, we're going to be here. But until then, like we have to kind of step away. So when that happened and my mom kicked me out, you know, and it was the first time I was homeless, not by choice, because all the other times I knew I had that option, right? So of course, grandmom didn't want to see me completely homeless. So it was, oh, you can stay in my sunroom. You know, so she would lock the door to the house and I would stay in the sunroom and I watched and, you know, like a good addict, I, you know, found out which window was broken in her house and I broke in and I robbed her. And that was a very pivotal moment for me because she woke up while I was in the house and I remember hearing her wake up and wanting to tell her, hey, you're okay. Like you're safe. It's just me in here. And feeling so bad because my grandmother's a saint. She also doesn't curse and she was cursing under her breath. And you could hear like she was terrified because I left the window open. So she knew somebody came into the house because the window was still open when she walked upstairs. But I remember having that pull to be like, Grandma, it's okay, you're safe. But then realizing if I did that, it meant that I couldn't take what I had and I wasn't going to be able to get high. You know, so I waited till she went back downstairs and I jumped back out the window and, it was the first time, like I called my mom and I was like, hey, let Grandma know she's safe. Like it was me in the house, but like, this is what I am. And like, I'm going to go get high. And that was a big turning point for me. So that was kind of where it started. And then at that point, obviously nobody wants me in their house. Nobody really wants to talk to me. You know, families telling me, hey, if you go and, you know, if you get help again and you stay, you don't leave, we won't press charges. So I go into treatment for a couple days and I leave and they did the best thing they could have done. They pressed charges. So I had, you know, violation on probation. I had new felony charges. And I'm completely alone with absolutely nothing out in Kensington yet again, this time not by choice and this time without a car or anything like that. So, you know, things happen and trauma kind of builds up and, I finally hit not just that bottom with like what my situation was surrounding me, but that spiritual bottom where I felt completely alone and I was begging, like, you know, I wasn't religious, I wasn't spiritual at that point, but, you know, just begging whatever it was out there to take me out, you know, either to get me out of there, show me a sign my life was going to be worth more, or to let me die when I overdosed, not have me Narcan, or to just let somebody kill me. And that's what it took. And then a complete stranger showing me kindness is what sparked things back up for me and, you know, led me to the life that I have today. So. And
I love that story. And we're going to hit that in a little bit about that complete stranger because I remember you telling me about her when we had first met. But I want to, you know, so you really didn't go into like a full blown active, like anything goes addiction until after high school.
Yeah.
And so you're looking at like those weren't a lot of years between the end of high school till the time that, you know, so 72 treatment centers.
71.
Sorry.
Don't throw another one. It's bad enough without the extra one.
Sorry. And you were in jail. Mm-hmm. How many times were you in jail?
3 or 4. 3 or 4.
Detoxing in jail isn't fun, is it?
No, my God, no.
One of the worst things in the world.
Yeah. And this last one was so bad that they had to put me on like med ISO. So I was on acute watch because I was detoxing so bad. The time before that, I was literally like off of my bunk bed because it was in a different jail, and it was like set up like dorms, and throwing up off the side of the bed, and other inmates taking care of me, and yeah, it's brutal. This is before they would give you detox meds in jail. So
yeah, I never had detox meds
no,
in jail.
they do now, which, you know, thank God for the people that, some of them at least, but
right.
Yeah, not when we were detoxing in there.
It's not fun.
Mm-mm.
Definitely not fun.
Mm-mm. Not comfortable at all.
So, you know, it's interesting because people always say that as a person with substance use disorder, or if you want to really stigmatize this, you know, if you're an addict, mm-hmm. you have a choice. You choose to do that to yourself. You choose.
Who would
to put
ever
your family.
choose to do that to themselves?
Oh, you don't agree with that? You don't agree it's a choice?
No,
really?
I don't. No, not even a little bit. And my argument when I talk to, because it's, oh, well, this is a bad person, or look at what me and you both do in the community today, and both of us have that same background. By nature, we're good people. You know, we were sick people, and we still, at any given moment, can go back to that if we're not thorough in making sure that we're okay and we're taking care of ourselves, because we do have a disorder. And if it's not treated, and if it's not continually treated, because there's still times like, even recently where I get so busy and I have so much on my plate and my program starts slacking. The things that I do to take care of me and make sure that mentally I'm okay, and that I'm reminding myself every day that, like, I am just as close to a drink or a drug as somebody who has a day or has 2 days. So recently I've had to reach out to my sponsor and say, hey, I want to go back through my steps, and I want to refocus on the program and kind of get myself, back to being on fire for it, because sometimes you do forget. But the reality is, like, this is a disorder. This is a disease that needs to be treated and continue to be treated. And I know for certain that I'm a good person. I stand, very tall on that. And it's one of the things, like, I'm very humble about a lot of things, but one thing that I will scream in anyone's face is that I'm a genuinely good person, and I'm proud of it. And prior to ever using, I was a good person. I was a good kid. I was a really good kid. I think I also stigmatized addiction prior to activating that in myself, and thought that I was too good to be an addict, and I thought I was experimenting, and I was too smart. So I was guilty of it too.
Oh yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, I did a show with your friends that we had in for a night for recovery with them, and we talked about that, and it's interesting because when I first started recovery, or started my recovery journey, the first time, one of the first times.
One of the times.
I was sitting in my IOP, and I remember sitting in the IOP, and I'm looking around the room, and I'm looking at the guy next to me, and the woman over there, and the guy over there, and I'm thinking to myself, I have nothing in common with these people. What the hell am I doing sitting in this room with them? Uh-huh. I am not like them. Because in my head, I wasn't. But all of a sudden, I started peeling these layers back.
The layers.
Oh, wow.
It's a whole different person when you get those layers going.
And I found out that I was more like them than any of the people that I had spent most of my life with. Yeah. In friendships.
It's crazy. Even I remember, my mom, because I'm her daughter, so naturally she puts me on a pedestal. And, there was times that she'd come out to Kensington looking for me or to pick me up, and she'd be like, why are you out here with these people, right? The same woman who now is out there every week with me serving these people, and she loves them and she cares about them, because for so long she didn't understand either. So the first night or the last night she picked me up out there, when she actually took time to have a conversation with some of them, and I asked her to bring out water and food, and she's handing it out, and she realized that they're all just like me. We're all very similar. And that's where, I used to be the same way, and I had to start looking for those similarities and not the differences, and realizing that any person that struggles with this, or even struggles with hopelessness in any form, not just addiction, but hopelessness in any form, I have something in common with and I can relate to. And that's why like Grace Project's not just addiction focused, we're hope focused, right? So looking at stuff like that, it's just, I don't know, your world really opens up and you can start connecting with people better because there's always a way to relate to somebody. But it's just wild the way that, you know, by nature, we can kind of separate ourselves and it ends up hindering us and keeping us from getting sober. You know, that was a big part of why I couldn't do it because I was like, I'm smarter than them or I'm better than this. And
I don't need this.
Yeah, and then I ended up being worse off than most of the people that in those first couple treatment centers I was sitting there judging. I did way worse than they did. You know, so it really is a bizarre thing, but, and it's hard to understand that unless you have like a loved one that you watch go through it directly or you live it yourself. Because most of us, even though we don't admit it, most of us were guilty of stigmatizing addiction prior to becoming an addict ourselves.
Absolutely. And we did it because of the fact we were trying to cover up who we truly are.
Yeah, the onion. I talked to a girl yesterday. She actually reached out to me, a girl that I was in jail with. And she was like, you know, I know this sounds creepy, but I've been watching for a while. And she had gotten sober and she relapsed, got sober again, and she's struggling. And she's like, I just want to know, you know, like how you did it. So we're talking about all of that. And then we're talking about like how different I was at that point in my life because I had all those layers and I was so angry and I would try, you looked at me the wrong way, I wanted to fight you. And, you know, it was just a totally different, miserable, angry, scared little girl is what it came down to. And you know how today I'm like always smiling and I'm happy and I'm very positive and I can't remember the last time I yelled at someone. That's what I was telling her yesterday when I talked to her, and she's like, it's just so crazy, you know, and it's because I finally peeled back those layers that I was hiding in, and now I get to be Megan.
Those layers are painful, aren't they?
Painful.
Takes a while.
Yeah.
You know, and even when you think that you got through all of them,
There's
like
another one there. There's another one there.
But it helps us evolve. It helps us become the people that we become, you know, and we are not perfect.
No.
We are far from it.
Far from it. Far
you
from
know,
it.
I mean, we have to work harder than the next person to be able to have the smile on our face every day.
Yep.
You know, we can't go out after work and have a glass of wine or, you know, go out and do a bump in the bathroom and then go home and put our head down and go to sleep, you know? We, you know, that's not us. That's not what cards were dealt to us. And we're going to fight for the rest of our lives to just stay clean and sober.
Right.
And that's one thing about recovery that has changed in years. I mean, if you talk about to some of the old heads in recovery, like we had Chris Dreisbach here, and I joke with him because he has 10 years under his belt. I'm like, oh, you're an old head at 10 years, you know? And, you know, recovery back then was so different.
Yeah.
Recovery today is so different.
Yep.
You know, recovery has so many different, you can take so many different takes on what it is.
Yep.
You know, and but it's really funny because there's still a division in recovery.
100%.
Because if you are on any type of medically assisted treatment, you're not really considered by some of the old schools in true recovery.
Even some psych, and people are like, you know, and that's why my thing, because I've had this discussion with a lot of people because, you know, I'm fine with disclosing that I'm in AA. And I've had friends of mine talk about something that somebody did or something and saying, oh, well, it's against AA. And I'm like, is it though? Is it against AA? Because I feel like people take the base program and they try to change it to what's convenient and what fits their beliefs. And then it causes a divide. And the reality is, if you're doing what my belief, and again, not trying to push on it, but what my belief is, if you're doing the best that you can every day to be a good person, you're living by spiritual principles, you're not picking up a drink or a drug, and you're not causing harm to other people or yourself, you're doing pretty good in the program.
It's interesting that it's you know, AA, NA, and I can disclose I was not a fan of NA when I went, so I went to AA. That's just me. And where alcohol wasn't really a problem. Well, not to me, everybody else it was a problem, but not to me. But you know, I look at it, and before it was, oh well, it's anonymous, and it's almost like I always feel like, and I'm probably going to get some backlash if I say this, that you know they're keeping us stigmatized by doing that, by becoming anonymous. But yet you have everybody posting, I'm at this day, that day. If we drop that barrier, if we drop that, the stigma can drop too.
Yeah.
Because think about it. when you drove by a church and you didn't know anything different at night and you saw a bunch of people sitting outside smoking cigarettes, you're like, oh, those people have problems. You know what I mean? Like you were almost like put on this like own little like island by yourself. And it shouldn't be like that, I don't think.
It shouldn't. And it's hard because I can understand where some people want to remain anonymous because of how it can impact their life. So, you know, to each their own. But I always urge people to recover out loud like I do. I was at a networking event recently for my job, and it was at a bar, and they were covering drinks for everyone. And I was like, they're like, okay, what do you want to drink? And I was like, oh, I'll have a water. And, you know, somebody was like, oh, you don't want to drink too early. And I was like, well, I actually don't drink. I'm in recovery. And I just said it. And so people are asking me questions, and this other guy comes up to me towards the end, and he was like, hey, I just like stop me away from everyone. And he's like, I just want to tell you, like, I really respect that you did that. I'm in recovery myself. I only have about a month. And I was like, so what are you ashamed of? Because you chased me out. I'm like, you know, it's not an easy thing to do, but it's something to wear proudly. And I feel like the people that I know that are in recovery are they're some of the best people I know. So it really is, when you work a program and like you put the work into yourself to be a better person, like I became a better person after my addiction than I was even before it. And I was already a good person because of the work that I put in, you know? So it's just crazy. Like I can understand it, but I always urge people, and I'm like, that can help break the stigma. I remember one of my original board members telling me after an interview that I did for a magazine, like, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't say this, or you shouldn't say, and I was like, I don't care like how it looks. It's my truth, and I wear my truth proudly because I overcame it. And I want other people that have been in and out of treatment, or are homeless out in Kensington, or whatever their story is, whatever's making them feel like they can't do this. I felt the same way, and I did this, and I'm still doing it. So I wear that proudly, and I'll scream to anybody like, hey, yes, I robbed my grandmother. Yes, I've been in and out of jail. Yes, I've been in a ton of treatment centers. I've done some horrible things, and I've hurt a lot of people. But it was a result of my addiction, which isn't justifying it. Like I've had to make my amends, and I live constantly in those amends. But that was the reason behind it. It didn't make me a bad person, and I make up for it every single day in my life now.
You know, because I think if people look at it and they start to peel the layers back themselves, they're going to see that the stuff that you did while you were in active addiction was because you were using.
Right.
When you take that catalyst out of the equation and you all of a sudden become Megan Cohen, that good person that you were prior to.
She's a cool person.
And that you are not,
I like her.
She's all right.
I like her.
Yeah,
she's all right.
She's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
She's a lot of fun. She's easy to pick on. I like that, you know? But, you know, people forget that we're still human at the end of the day.
Yep.
We're all the same. You know, no matter what car you're driving, what check you're making, what house you're living in, what house you're not living in, you're no better than anybody else.
Right.
We're all the same because that could be you.
Right.
And people forget that because they all live in their own little bubbles and their own perfect worlds, and
their dirt doesn't show the way that when you're using, you don't care, and it's all out there. But I always say, like, normies, you know, they should do the steps too, because they can benefit from it. And like, we know that the steps weren't initially designed for addicts and alcoholics. Like a normal person can do them.
Right.
You know, so it's just, and they would really benefit because everybody has dirt. Nobody's perfect. We are flawed creatures. We're humans. You know, but yes, a lot of times like drugs and being in an active addiction can lead us to do much worse stuff because before your basic survival instincts, it's how am I going to get the next one? You know, what it does in your brain, like there's scientific reasons behind it. You know, but then you look at the people that don't struggle with an addiction, and if you uncover some of their dirt, it's pretty bad, you know, and that's why I always say, like, a clean and sober addict or alcoholic is, in my eyes, they're kind of like a notch up because they own what their truth is and they've worked on it and they've made their amends and they're honest about the things that they've done. You know, so they're my people.
It's transparency.
Like them. Yeah, I like them. They're my people.
And that's what I like the best. If you're transparent, and you gotta be. You know, people who don't understand it or haven't gone through it, it's not transparent. You know, and you know, people that you said it. We've done things in our lifetime that we are not proud of.
Oh yeah.
I mean, people turn their nose up to addiction because of what goes along with it, which, you know, is the homelessness, it's the types of drugs, it's the sex work, it's, you know, the robbing, it's the beatings, it's the assaults, it's all this stuff. And people don't realize that a lot of the trauma that is experienced happens while you're going through the addiction.
Yes.
So I want people to realize, and I want them to hear it from you. Why would you put yourself in that position if it's that easy to turn on and off, Megan?
That's my point. Yeah, it's not easy to turn on and turn off. You know, it creeps up on you. Like I said, I thought that I was experimenting, and there's a lot of people too, whether it's they're, you know, prescribed. Like nobody wakes up and says, "Hey, I want to be a drug addict." It would be cool to be a drug addict.
Nobody checks that box.
No, like that's not. So when it happens, like I remember the first time when I was like, oh, I'm not going to do drugs anymore. I think this might become a problem. And then I was sick and I didn't understand I was withdrawing. And then what I learned that day was, okay, so if I do what I have to do every day to get drugs, I never have to feel this way again, because I felt like I was dying. And somebody who has not experienced what withdrawal feels like wouldn't understand that. And again, there's that feeling, and then there's what happens in our brains. And you know, our decision making, shutting down, and all that when we're in withdrawal. So there's a lot that goes into it that leads us to put that before everything else. You know, so I don't know. It's complicated, because I used to feel that way too. Like, oh, why can't you just stop?
Stop.
And even with xylazine right now, like everyone's saying, I had somebody ask me the other day, well, if people are losing limbs and it's eating their flesh, like, why would they keep doing it? And I'm like, what do you mean? They already are addicted. They're already using. They can't just stop. And then the detox is so much worse than even what me and you went through. And detox protocols aren't updated. So people are going into treatment, they're not making it through the detox because they're so sick. So there's so much that goes into it, and nobody wants to live that way. Nobody is happy living that way. But the disease of addiction is so strong.
And there's that word. It is a disease.
Yes.
If it
affects your brain.
And well, if it weren't a disease, the CDC wouldn't classify it as one. Let's face it, you know. But I'm sure a lot of people out there know better than the CDC. So, you know, they'll argue that point. But
it affects an organ, which is your brain. It impairs it. It's something you got to treat.
Absolutely.
It's progressive. It's a disease.
Consistently treat it, because it just doesn't go away. It's not like, oh, you spent 4 years in recovery so far, you're healed.
I just had a friend that just celebrated 4 years, and she just overdosed and died.
It's interesting. When we're in our active addiction, we can use and use and use and feel like Superman or Superwoman, or so we think.
Yep.
But the minute that we take that away and all of a sudden we want to go back to it, that's what's going to kill us.
Yep.
And you now working in treatment itself, you see this a lot as well, I'm sure. How has that affected you, like knowing this and the people that your loved ones?
You know, working in treatment it's tough, because I always, you know, even with my loved ones and with the clients that we have, like I consistently tell them, you know, this is something that you're not gonna cure it. You can treat it, you're not gonna cure it. And it's something I have to remind myself too. And sometimes I can see, like, I always see the early signs before somebody picks up, for the most part, except for the friend that I just mentioned. Didn't see that coming, which, it really, really rocked me. You know, but it's tough because you get so invested, right? And especially for me, I love my trouble children, because I was one. So like the ones that are in and out of treatment, I'm like, okay. But I have to make sure that, you know, I have good boundaries with it too, because in the beginning I got so overly invested, even with my Grace Project people that, you know, we'll get into treatment and then we see them the next week, you know, or people that like, that I was homeless without, and they're still out there, and I'm like, come on, get it together, you know. But I have to realize we can't push treatment on anyone. They have to be ready or it's not going to work. So it's tough to not get to that point of, I mean, let's be real, I get to the point of exhaustion all the time.
Every day.
Yeah, story of my life. Because no matter what I do, no matter what boundaries I set, I care. And that's what it comes down to. But I try to keep that in check as best as I can. And I remind myself constantly what it was like when I was active in it, and that I can't force this on anyone. So I used to be a little bit more pushy with people, like, no, go to treatment, give this and I've realized, I've reminded myself, and I've done some work. I'm not God. And it's not on me to make somebody. I don't have that power to make somebody want this. You know, and all I can do is let them know, hey, I'm here when you want it, and I support you, you know, when you want it. And sometimes, like, if it's the same person again and again, then my approach for giving help changes. Instead of me making the calls for them, maybe I'm telling them where to call.
Right.
You know, stuff like that. So it's just it's tough, and it's tough when you see somebody get their life back together, especially that you saw, you know, on one side of things, and they start getting their life back together and they're doing good, and they go back out.
Yep.
It's heartbreaking, and it reminds you of the reality of this disease.
Yeah, you know, running, you know, Fill the Unknown, you know, runs recovery homes, as you know, and, you know, you would like to think that everybody coming out of treatment and into a recovery home is on their way. And
you would like to think.
they're going to make it.
You would like to think.
You know, there's nothing as disheartening as walking down the avenue and seeing somebody that was in your home standing on the avenue.
Yeah.
You know, where at once you saw some hope and joy in their eyes, and now you're just seeing these blank stares again.
Right. The lights are back off.
Oh my gosh. And, you know, it's really important. You hit that nail on the head, and people don't get it. You cannot want something for somebody more than they want it for themselves. Mm-mm. You can talk to your blue in the face, but they will not get treatment until they are ready. That's why I think for what we do on the streets with outreach, it's really important. When people talk, all we do is listen.
Yep.
I've heard the same story over and over from the same person. And as I walk away, I say, okay, well, let's hope tomorrow's better then.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to just be supportive, and you just got to let it all
And
play
there's
out.
times, you know, because I know kind of what everybody takes a different approach, right? And one of the things that I'm good at is kind of feeling somebody out, and knowing, okay, does this person need tough love? Do they need compassion? Like, are they more of like a scientific mind where they want me to throw facts at them? You know, like, and I try to kind of gauge that. And what I'll do, like, we had a guy a couple weeks ago, and one of my volunteers called me over and was like, hey, he might want treatment. We don't really know. So I'm talking to him, and it was so funny because he was giving me all of these excuses for why he couldn't go to treatment. And then he was like, well, you know, if I just had a job in an apartment, I'd stop using. And I started laughing, and I said, look, I don't know who you think you're talking to. And maybe you actually believe that. Maybe your disease is telling you that that's true, but I can promise you it's not, you know? So I called him out on his bullshit. And it was so funny because when I started doing that, because the one, she's looking and she's like, you're being kind of harsh. And because she gave him a hug, she's like, well, she's being harsh, I'll give you a hug. And I'm like, you let me do my thing. Just watch, you know? And he starts laughing, and he was like, you're right. And when I tell you, like, so this conversation kept going with him, and anytime he would throw bullshit at me, I would call him out on it, and he would think about it, and he'd be like, oh, you're kind of right. So it ends up towards the end of it, he's like, you know, I haven't had anyone be kind to me since I've been out here. This is a totally different dynamic I'm not used to. Like, you guys have given me so much hope. And he's going on and on and on about it, right? So we're like, all right, do you want to go to treatment? So I was like, if you want to, great, we'll get you there. If you don't, you know, that's fine too. So he agrees to go, and we're taking him, had a volunteer taking him over to Friends Hospital. And he got spooked, and he jumped out of the car, and the volunteers were really upset. And I said, look, this happens. We still planted a seed though. And a lot of times that proves to be very valuable, because there was people in my journey that planted seeds, and then, you know, that woman came along and just kind of watered those seeds, you know, and they grew. So a few days goes by, and I get a call from him from Friends Hospital, and he apologized and said he got scared, but that he kept thinking about the words that we said to him. He told his family about us, and he's in detox. He's currently still in detox.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I'm smiling just because I remember jumping out of cars on Roosevelt Boulevard.
Oh, God, same. I mean, yeah, I'm going to go. And then the withdrawal starts hitting, and you're like, never mind, never mind.
Or the car pulls up out front, and you ran out the back door.
Yep.
You know, and they're out front waiting. And it's like, oh, are you there? No, I left the half hour ago.
No,
You know?
I'm gone.
But, and so I get it. And it is interesting because the volunteers that we do have, if they aren't in recovery or they haven't gone through what we go through, to them, it could be it could diminish their spirit. It could deplete their sense. And to us, and I hate to sound like this because it could be sort of comical, because we're like, it was sort of what was expected probably.
Yeah.
And maybe better luck tomorrow.
Right.
You know, maybe comical is not the right word, but it can be in a way, you know. Because
we know, and we can relate. So for me, like, because I think back, I'll be like, you know, to just like you did, to the things that I've done.
Right.
And the different state of minds that I've been in that has led me to do similar stuff. So there is time. And that's why also when people, like when he was giving, like I have to laugh sometimes, you know, not at them, but I'm like laughing, and I'm like, come on now. Like, come on. you know, so, and it's not that I think it's funny by any means, you know, but I don't know. It's just weird because you see it and when you got it, you can spot it, you know?
Or then you're like, how high are you really?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, I could gauge this at this
Yeah.
point. So we've been talking. We talked about going on the streets. You know, people are very aware that I do outreach and you do outreach, and you do it through what's known as the Grace Project.
Yes.
And the Grace Project is your nonprofit that you started as a calling to service when you started recovery journey. Tell me about Grace Project. Tell me what it does, what it is, and why. Why.
We'll start with the why.
Start with the why.
So the last night that I was out in Kensington, there was a woman. And like I said before, I got to this point where I was praying to whatever it was out there, like, show me something, intervene in some way, show me that my life is meant for more, take me out, right? And it was the same thing over and over and over again. So the one night I'm in this abandoned house and I was upstairs. I just got done getting high and I'm sitting there crying and I'm like, why? Like, how did I get here? You know, and the same thing, like, show me something. So I walk outside and this woman grabs me, and my initial response is somebody's trying to jump me. So I'm like ready to jump, like ready to fight. And this other lady comes, she's like, no, she just wants to talk to you. So the woman who grabbed me spoke primarily Spanish. She spoke a little teeny tiny bit of English, but not enough that we could really communicate well. So this woman's translating for us and she's like, you know, something's been drawing her to you. She feels like you don't belong out here and she wants to know what your story is. Now, again, part of my prayer is like, show me that I'm meant for more. You know, so here's kind of a direct answer to that, but my skeptical head is still like, strange coincidence, but I'm not convinced, right?
Plus, I'm still high.
Plus, I'm high.
Yeah.
So
I think that people have to realize that too. Sometimes.
Right. So, you know, I was completely transparent, and I was like, you know, I have felony warrants out right now. You know, my family won't talk to me. I robbed my grandmother. Like, you know, I'm like, I'm on heroin. I'm on crack. Like, just kind of really just laying it all out there. And I was.
You didn't discriminate on the drugs you used, did you?
No.
Whatever's available.
Whatever's there. Yeah, whatever's there. You know, so I was so used to people looking at me like I was an insect, walking into stores and people looking at me like I was nothing. You know, and it was to a point where I felt like I was nothing. And here's this woman asking like what my story is and being drawn to me, and I'm being completely honest. And despite me telling her the truth, the lady goes, well, she wants to take you into her house and let you take a shower and, you know, give you food and clean clothes. And I always say when I tell this story, I don't recommend doing that. I don't know I just told her that I robbed my own grandmother. But when I think back to it, I think a part of the reason is because she knew she didn't have anything for me to take. I went into her house and there wasn't much in there. So here's this woman who doesn't have much that's being drawn to me and still wants to help me and wants to give me a shower and clothes and feed me.
She's living in one of the worst neighborhoods.
Right on Reach Street.
Coast. On what street?
Reach Street.
Oh, all right. In one of the worst neighborhoods and worst streets.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, she had nothing. There was nothing you were going to take from her.
No.
And probably nothing you could really do to overpower her in the condition you were in.
No.
So this woman had a feeling.
Yeah.
This woman had it.
Yeah. So she brings me in and you know, I take a shower. She has a little dress, and it was just me and her when we went in. The other woman, you know, didn't come in. I guess she had like a daughter. I don't know what it was, but she had this little dress that was my size, worked out nicely. And, you know, I come downstairs and there's food on the table and I eat. And before I go to leave, and that was it, you know, before I go to leave, she puts her arms out to give me a hug and we look into each other's eyes and both of us start crying. And I literally tell this story so much and it still like chokes me up because the feeling that I got, like, I can't even put it into words. That was where I was like, okay, there's something greater at play here. Like, this was a direct answer to my prayers. This woman was sent for a reason as a direct answer to my prayers. And feeling that connection with her, and we can't communicate with words, but we're having that communication. Like, you know, that was the last night I was out in Kensington. Needless to say, I called my mom the next day and said, you know, I'm ready. You can come pick me up. You know, and my mom, I could barely walk. I had Kenzo foot, you know, blisters everywhere. So mom comes to get me, and that was when I had asked her, you know, can you bring out some food and some water for the people out here? And, you know, she did, and she took me to the hospital to get medically cleared. I went into jail, and it all started with that woman. You know, I always say, like, there's a lot of people that played a huge role in my story. But that woman's actions that night showed me what a random act of kindness from a stranger can do.
Do you know her name?
I don't. And I've
Never seen her again?
no. So I have somebody that's willing to go out with me and knock on doors and try to find her that speaks Spanish. I also, the Kelly Clarkson show had reached out a while ago and said that they would help me find her. And I think that when they learned more about the neighborhood that they'd be knocking on doors in, they backed out. Because I really want to reconnect with her.
Let's go.
Do you speak Spanish?
I don't need to. I don't need to. We're charming. We're charming.
Oh,
we survived
God.
those streets how many years? I mean, we're still out there.
Well, and I have faith. I have faith that we will reconnect, that either she's going to see something or somebody's going to tell her, because she wouldn't recognize me.
Do you remember the glare on
No, it was not the first house, because the first house on that side of the street had pulled a gun on me before for using in front of his house. No, it wasn't that one. It was one of the first 5 houses on the left hand, if you're standing on Allegheny, on the left hand side of Reach Street. Don't know which one, and I probably wouldn't recognize her initially, but maybe I would.
Right.
I can't picture her in my head, but maybe if I saw it, because I was high. And I look different too. So that's part of where the barrier is, where communication is going to be key, because she's not going to recognize. I mean, you saw the picture of when I was using. So,
Yeah.
But I have faith. From what I heard, nobody's moved out from that block.
That's the sad part about
Yeah.
it is where do they go?
Right. So
that's about as good.
I think she's there. I think she's there. And I really would love to tell her the ripple effect that she caused, and that she is the one, because like I said, I mean, it showed me what one small act of kindness can do. And the more sober that I got, again, realizing that this came from like a state of hopelessness, and what that woman did was she gave me hope again. So Grace Project tries to recreate what she did for me on a grander scale, not just with people out in Kensington struggling with addiction, but also for the children that we serve, for the families that we serve with our holiday program, and our Give a Little Hope program. So indirectly, by helping me, she has actually helped so many people. And this woman has no idea, and that's why I always tell people, paying it forward is huge. Because if you show somebody kindness and it causes them, it might spark something in them for them to do something good. And then indirectly you're helping all of these people, and it's this ripple effect that just keeps getting bigger, so it's a beautiful thing. And that's my why. That's my why.
I know somebody who speaks Spanish very well behind that booth back there, Danny Ramos.
Well, maybe we can convince him to go knock on some doors.
You can, talk to him a little bit afterwards. But, and what an amazing story, and what an amazing woman this person is to have done that. And, it makes me wonder, has she done this before? And if so, how many lives has she touched that we don't know about?
I wondered the same thing. And some of the girls that I was out there with said that she didn't. And that's part of where it was more and maybe she did after the fact, but that night after I went back out, I was cause I was so blown away by her kindness. And, we were on that street, we were on that street. And nobody else had that same experience. And maybe that changed or there was genuinely some sort of divine intervention that caused the two of us to connect and I don't know what it was, but like I said, that was really, I'm not a religious person, but I'm very spiritual, and I have my version of God. And that was when I saw him loud and clear, was that night, and my life has continued to get better ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Tell me about the Give a Little Hope.
Oh, it's my favorite. So our Give a Little Hope program is for children impacted by poverty, addiction, or sickness. And basically they get nominated. We select one at random. And then we call either the parent or the guardian, and we get some information about the kid. What do they like? How old are they? What are their interests? And we design an entire day tailored just to them, pick them up in a limo, take them somewhere fun, buy them a couple presents, make the entire day about them. And then we make a video and we title it with their name and then day. So we had Gabe's day, we had Lily's day, and really just go above and beyond to make them feel special despite what their circumstances are. And it's not only for the kid, but also the parent or the guardian who's dealing with because recently it's been mostly children that are suffering with some sort of sickness.
So the caregiver is the parent.
Yes.
The guardian.
And it helps them to be able to just see this child happy and smiling and for them to not have to worry about all the outside stressors for a day or financial stressors for a day. Like, and it's really just a beautiful thing. Like it's so priceless because like I said, it's not just the kid that's just having a great time, but when you look at the parents and look at their faces as they're watching their child, like, you know, have this day, this ideal day, it's very emotional, you know? So it's a really cool program. And it's not, you know, we say it's for the kids, but it's not just for the kids. It's for the people that take care of these children that, you know, are just victim of circumstance, you know? And sometimes like the parents don't necessarily have the means, because it's turned out that a lot of our kids kind of qualify in dual areas there. You know, so it's a special thing. I love it. I absolutely love it. And we're trying to expand on it. It's our most expensive program. It runs us a few thousand each time we do it. You know, so.
There's grants written.
We gotta.
We'll talk about that for sure.
We gotta.
How many have you done so far?
We have done, so there was Lily, 4.
4. That's great.
Yeah.
1 a year. That's great. You know, I mean, you're giving the hope, and that's what I do like about Grace Project. You know, it parallels, like we said, like the Philly Unknown. It's not specifically related to substance use disorder and out on the streets.
Yeah.
It's related to community. It's about bringing hope. It's about bringing a little bit of happiness to somebody, even if it's for a little bit of time.
Right.
You know, it's the little things that count. And, you know, I think people tend to forget that there's an entire community out there of people that are affected, whether they're in active addiction, whether they've never used before. This affects everybody.
Right.
And everybody's affected in some way and is in need some way. And you touch on that. And did you ever think when you were going through this active addiction that you would be this person who would be out there just serving?
No. And what's crazy?
Because you were probably pretty selfish, weren't you?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. And I say it like that only because I was.
That's what we are. We can't be any other way, or we're not going to be able to get well, right? And I was a victim of everything.
Oh my gosh, everybody else is fault but ours.
Always. You know, but my God, I couldn't imagine this in my wildest dreams. I've always known, like, I've always liked helping people. Like I said, prior to my addiction, like I was a good kid. Like one of my favorite things that I did, like, was doing volunteer work with therapeutic riding for special needs kids. So I've always had like that passion there. You know, and I remember one of the times I was flying to Texas to go to detox, and I was sitting next to this random man on the plane, and he was asking, you know, where I was going, and I was telling him, oh, I'm going to rehab. I don't know why I told him I was going, but I did. I told him I was going to rehab. And he was like, well, you know, what do you want to do with your life? And he's asking me all these questions. And I remember saying to him, like, I don't know, but like, I know I want to help people. If I can ever get it together, like, I want to help people. I want to do something probably for kids, but I want to help in some way. And it was such a minute conversation at that point in my life, because like I said, I always had that passion for it, and I didn't think that it would hold any weight. And I totally forgot about that conversation for years until Grace Project started. And I realized that came true, that those words that I spoke to him and saying like, hey, this is something that I want to do if I ever get it together. Like, I actually did that. And I never thought that I was actually going to do that, because I never thought I was actually going to get sober. So like, it all sounded good. And I was like, I would love to do things to help people. But I genuinely did not think it was possible for me to get sober. So my life today, when I look at like, because the reality is like, you know, I might have sparked Grace Project up, but like, I am not Grace Project. Grace Project isn't me. It's so much bigger. Yeah. And like, our volunteers and the people that support what we do and spread word about it, like, that is what makes it work. I'm blessed and I'm honored to have a front row seat to all of it and get to be a part of everything that we do. But if it weren't for all the other people involved, I wouldn't be able to do any of it. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about it that way, because yes, it's my baby. But it's not mine at the same time.
And I like that, because people will say to me, well, you know, oh, well, he's feeling it. No, I'm not. Yeah. That is.
We live and breathe it.
It's what we started. It's the movement we started. It's what we wanted to bring to the community to give back.
Right.
And without you supporting me and me supporting you, we're nothing.
Right.
Without that support, the outside factors. So, you know, and I think that's where that humbleness comes in, with the fact that, you know, we learned a lot of that in the sobriety part of it all. And that, you know, you become more appreciative of it. But, you know, we talked about, what you do for others. You're in, your life is right now, you're working for Promont, so you're in recovery, working recovery that way. You are doing the Grace Project, you're out on the streets, you are doing this, you're doing that. What do you do for you by yourself, for yourself, without any of this?
Yeah, so it's tough, and that's an area that I fall short sometimes, and it gets to a point where I have to like kind of notice myself getting drained, and I'm like, okay, reel it back in. So what I like to do, whether it's like, going away for a couple of days, if it's during the winter, I'll call my dad because he has a place in Florida that he's a snow bunny or whatever they call him. Snowbird.
Snow bunny.
Snow bunny. He's a snowbird.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. So I'll call him. I'll go stay with him for a couple of days and kind of like get grounded again. When it's nice out, like during the summer, I might go hiking, go to the beach for a day, spend time with my nieces or my nephew, like, stuff like that. So I have to really kind of constantly clock myself. And it's funny because I've been, with our gala just finishing, like there was a lot of planning up to that. Last month was really busy for me with the treatment center just opening up. This whole beginning part of the year has been a lot. And one of the things I told you one of the things I said was that I was only going to do 2 media type things for June, right? I have a second one tonight. It's the first. So that's not going to happen. It sounded good. So maybe yeah.
Out on the streets?
No, it's a Zoom podcast. Yeah, so that's not as I'm like, it's not really.
So you're on one, so the month just started.
Yes, and then we've hit that mark of 2. So sometimes I say I'm going to take better care, and I don't necessarily stick with it. But I do realize that this month, like I have to make sure that, because with my job, I work around the clock. Both my, Promont job and Grace Project. So what I'm trying to learn is that it's okay to take a day for myself and not answer any calls. I've yet to actually do that, but I'm getting to that point.
Let me find my text. I think there might be a few in there. But no, I get it. And it's important to do that. And it's okay not to answer anybody. You don't owe anybody an immediate response ever.
Yeah.
I don't care who it is.
Especially not you.
Yeah. Me, I should be the top of that list, woman. We'll talk about that later. See, this is the way I get treated,
You started this by ditching me 1,000, starting with the banana bread. Yeah, I'm not over it.
All right, I'm going to let that one just slide right by on there. Funny you say that because we had donations the other day, and one of them was donations of a ton of bananas. And they're all at the point
Did you make banana bread?
Well, no, because you weren't around. I couldn't find you.
Oh, I must have missed the text or the call when you asked me to make it with you.
No, it was there. You probably just skimmed right by it. So I donated it to a community fridge, and hopefully they used it for.
I'm sure that they. Yeah.
I know, because Lord knows we're never gonna get that done. So. What is one thing that if you could go back and do over, what would it be?
Honestly, it might sound cliche, but I don't think I would do anything over.
That's not cliche. That's good.
I don't think I would do anything over because I genuinely believe that every experience that we have in our life shapes the person that we are today. And, every door that closes, another one opens. And, everything is kind of like this chain reaction leading up to the point that we're in this very moment. Even looking back to how we're ending up here with, when we met and all of that. So I feel like if I were to change one teeny tiny little thing, even if it was one day of my life, I wouldn't have ended up where I'm at right now. And there's some things like I remember, in relation to like when my grandfather was dying, that I used to say, I wish that I was more present, on that last day, because I had missed him dying by a couple minutes because I stopped to get drugs on the way back to the hospital. What I realized though is that experience and the pain that I felt from those actions continue to help fuel me today. So every little thing even things that I've done that I'm not happy with in the past or things that I feel guilt from, they got me to where I am today. So I wouldn't change anything because I wouldn't change where I'm at today. I love where I'm at today. And it's not, all unicorns and rainbows. I'm stressed 97% of the time. I'm stressed out. But beyond that stress, there's a lot of peace and happiness and love, you know, for the people around me. And it's just a beautiful life. It really is.
But it's nice to be able to have that stress.
Yeah.
It's better than the alternative.
Right.
I mean, because let's face it, we didn't really stress all those years in active addiction because you know what? We were using, we were high.
Yeah. Just about how are we getting money? When am I going to get arrested next? When do I go back to jail? Like,
what am I going to boost next? What am I, you know, and that's a lifestyle. And then all of a sudden you find this other lifestyle that opens up so many doors and, you know, takes you down so many different avenues and on a journey that you never expected. And, you know, it's okay to not be okay. And you embrace that too.
Right.
You know, how about your mental health? How's your mental health? You know, when you're stressed so badly and you're trying to work recovery, how's your mental health?
You know, it wavers. And so I am very transparent that I have something called PMDD, which is a woman thing. And it's basically PMS on steroids. So it's severe. And, you know, there's some months where I am sitting in my bed crying for days, and it can hinder, you know, my life drastically. But even with that, whereas when I first was, because I kept getting misdiagnosed as bipolar, having depression, like all these different things until finally I was sober long enough. And, you know, my PO at the time had actually noticed, he's like, it's, you know, about every month, like you look different and you're not feeling good. And drug court had actually made me, in a court session, she was like, my judge was like, go out, call the gynecologist, and you need to meet with the psychiatrist. And finally, we got the right diagnosis.
And what is it?
PMDD.
Okay, and what does that do?
Premenstrual dysphoric disorder, something like that. But it's literally, it's basically PMS, but times like 1,000.
Like on roids.
Yeah. Like on lots of steroids. Yep.
So is it like change like everything? Like, you know, your emotion,
everything.
Your attitude,
I physically look different. Like my face will look drained. I get very tired. I get very, sometimes it's anger. Sometimes it's just sadness. It's very, very up and down. And it's not every month there's effects from it, but some months are just absolutely crippling. So with that, you know, what I had to do, because I didn't want to be on any medications. I'm not on any prescribed medications whatsoever. And I don't knock people for doing it. One of the main reasons I didn't want to is because I don't remember to take things every day. So I'll throw things all out of whack. So I'm like, I don't want to make things worse.
I want to interject. Isn't that funny? Because I'm the same way. Like I can never do even antibiotics.
I can't.
However, when we were in active use, we were out there
every day. Every day. It's so funny. So I'm like, that's one of the main reasons.
Take that multivitamin and forget about it.
That's it. I'll take it for 3 days and that's done.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many collections of different vitamins. I'm like, I'm going to take these every day. Doesn't happen.
My cabinet's all like,
it's bad. Yeah,
so,
it's bad.
But I'm so glad I'm not alone.
But, you know, so what I had to do is I really had to learn about what my mental health diagnosis was. And I did. I did a lot of research on it, on the symptoms, what things to look for. And I had to get to a point where I could accept it, because there was a lot of anger with it, because I'm like, this isn't fair. Why do I have to go through this? And what I realized is that, like, it's just a part of me and it's okay. And like, it's a temporary feeling. So it doesn't necessarily take away from the way that I feel, but I'm able to recognize now when I'm in that, okay, it's PMDD time. So you're feeling off, this is going to pass. And I've gotten so much better with it. Outside of those times, my mental health is pretty good. And even during that, you know, it's pretty, I actually, and it was really cool. I had, an old coworker of mine reached out to me recently, and she said there was a woman that she was working with that believes she has PMDD. And she was like, can you talk to her? Because it's one of those things, just like with being in recovery, I'm loud about my PMDD because I think it's important for the people around me to understand that I do have something, that I might be a little bit nasty here and there, or I might be sad and be very like removed from everyone. And it's not fair for them not to know that, because then they're thinking they did something wrong or it has to do with them. So I'm very big on jobs that I've had. My bosses always know it's one of the first things I tell them. You know, and typically the people around me aren't affected by it, but just in case. So this, coworker knew that I struggled with it, and the woman called me for support, and it was really cool because it's something that I hated so much, but now it's something that's not talked about enough. Not enough people know what PMDD is. And I'm able to provide support for other people who are struggling with it. And I'm able to accept that as part of me, to the point where like me and my friends joke about it now. I mean, recently, like we were in a group chat and one of my friends said something that was like off the wall, and she was like, "Oh, sorry, it's my PMDD." So we just, and it's something that I own now. And, outside of that, I think everything's pretty good. I'm a human, so I have some down days or days where I'm overly stressed. But I think for the most part, I manage it well. And I'm very self-aware.
So important, self-aware. Self-awareness is something that we avoid most of our lives too.
Yeah.
So to be able to like come into that, especially by the time you're 30, to have self-awareness, come on.
Yeah.
There's people out there that are 60s, pushing 70s, and that self-awareness isn't there.
Yeah.
So
thank God for all the treatment.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That insurance paid off.
Oh, it did. It did. Especially when I was under Dad's insurance.
It's funny when you recover out loud, and you become this voice. You become a voice for what you are passionate about. And the transparency's there. So once you are able to open up one door and admit that you are not perfect, and that there is something there that is holding you back, any other door, no holds barred. It's a given. So your PMDD, you become a voice for it.
Yeah.
So you're going to scream it. So that way, if somebody else can learn from it, that's great.
Yeah.
You're spreading that awareness. Was that something you ever expected to do? Like be that figure that people would come to?
No, never.
Does that help you in your recovery?
It does, but I don't know. It's something where I know that in itself isn't enough, because when I'm just living to help other people, I'm running myself into the ground. So it does help me because I love helping others, but it's not enough to keep me sober. I still have to do the back end work with it too. So yes and no, because sometimes it can be draining.
Oh yeah.
So, it just depends. Do I have good boundaries at that point in time? Am I, overdoing it? Am I saying no because I struggle with saying no because I want to help everyone? I think it's tough when you've experienced so much pain in your life, as most of us have, to not just by nature want to take somebody else's pain away, or when you see somebody in pain, to not want to just jump in and try to help. And then we end up causing ourselves more pain because we're running ourselves into the ground. So, it's crazy, but I think that's a big part of it. It's what we've been through, and not wanting anyone else to have to experience the feelings that we've experienced. But we also need to, as you can relate, be careful with how much we take on, because at the end of the day, we're not God, we're just people.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and that backfires on me a lot.
Oh yeah.
I lash out then. I'm like,
Well, that's what and then you get so like, so wound up, and it's like, and then I get mad at myself for getting wound up, and I'm like, you did this to yourself.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And we push ourselves, but you are a family person as well. You're close with Mom.
I am.
And I love her. She is amazing.
And I'm super aunt. Don't forget that.
Well, that's why there's
no better aunt out there than me.
The bows and
they're so perfect.
You are
my littles are
you live
perfect.
For them.
I breathe for them. Yes.
You do.
Yeah.
That is something when I see you post about that you light up and.
I'll literally cry right now. I love them so much. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you got? You got two
nieces and a nephew.
And the nephew
and the youngest niece are my brothers.
Okay.
And then the middle niece is my sister's.
And that's the bow.
That's the bow one. Yes. Don't worry. That Salem's going to have bows too. She's just still little.
Just trying to figure out what they do. Those
she looks so cute.
They'll hold the head together or what?
They might. You never know. It could fall off if it didn't have a bow.
So do you like kids?
I love kids. I love most kids. I love kids in general, but I can't say I don't, because even bad kids, I'm like, what's wrong? You know what I mean? So I guess,
was you.
yeah. I guess
I was a good kid,
the
but I was
answer-
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess
you
the
do?
answer is yes, I do. I can get annoyed with kids sometimes if their parents aren't parenting. But
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the pot calling the kettle black right there sometimes, isn't it?
yeah.
Not that your parents weren't parenting, but, as the kid. And
yeah, I mean the little ones though. If they're running around and the parents not even trying, but yeah, I don't know. It's I do. I love kids. That's part of why, like with Give a Little Hope program, and why my nieces and my nephew are so important to me. When I'm with them, like there's just such an innocence about kids, right? And like, my God, and the way that they love me. I mean, the only thing comparable to the way that those babies look at me is the way my dogs look at me. That's it. Nobody else loves me like that.
Unconditional love.
And I just like, oh my God, I love them so much. They're so perfect. In my eyes, they can do no wrong. I was babysitting my niece last weekend, and I've warned my siblings, like I'll overstep and defend the nieces and nephews all the time. But B, I'm the fun aunt within reason. So sometimes I might let them do a couple
You're
things.
the only aunt.
I'm not. Sister-in-law.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah,
right.
and
So
then
there's
and
that.
then my sister-in-law, she has
I
siblings
was just
as well.
trying to not give you, credit.
I know you were
so
trying, but it
that's
didn't
good.
work. So my niece was like, there was a little hole in the little thing that somehow connects to plumbing. I don't know. I don't understand those things. But I knew that it had something to do with the plumbing. And my niece was like picking up rocks and little tiny rocks, dropping them in. And I was like, she's not supposed to do this, but I don't care. She's having fun. She was so cute. So I took a video of it and sent it to my sister and her boyfriend. And they're like, don't let her do that. And I text them back and I said, well, I mean, I'm the fun aunt. You guys can tell her no. A couple rocks never hurt anybody. And they were like, you've got to be kidding me. I can't help it though. They're so cute. And I just like, so it's funny how I'll say like parents not parenting, but like aunt doesn't aunt sometimes. I'm just like, you have fun.
Well,
you
you don't
keep
have to.
smiling.
That's why.
Yeah. Like you keep smiling and
When they're
we're
not your
good.
kids, you're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
You're supposed to incite a little bit
I
of
love
chaos.
it. I'll sneak them like icing and stuff like that. I remember when my niece was little and my sister was like, no, you can't, don't give her any icing. So I snuck it to her. And then I got a video from my sister later and my niece was like wide eyes and looking back and forth and making all these noises late at night. But it cracks me up. And I love watching my siblings be parents. Both of them didn't want kids. And to see them with their children now is really such a beautiful thing. And my sister, especially, like she was like absolutely no kids. She's not cold, but doesn't show emotion much. She is the most loving mother on this planet. It blows my mind. I can't she put me on the camera so I could pull up my niece's crib right now so I can see it from wherever I am when I watched her. And it will go off and I'll literally log into the camera to watch my sister and my niece interact, cause it's so beautiful.
That's creepy.
It's so creepy. It's so creepy. And I'll say stuff to mess with them, scare them. Yeah. Cause you could talk through it. So my sister's like, I knew I was going to regret this, but I was telling my mom I went on because I was going to scare my sister. It was yesterday or the day before in the morning because I've only been on the camera for a couple days. I'm sure she'll kick me off soon.
They'll be
it'll be dead soon.
Yeah. Jocelyn, get rid of it now.
Yeah. So I went on and I was going to say, try to scare them. But then I heard her talking to Aria and I just melted and I was like, all right, I'll wait till tonight. So I waited till nighttime and then I did it. And apparently it didn't scare my sister. It scared my niece instead. So it kind of backfired. But needless to say, they're adorable. Moral of the story.
Keeps it real. Keeps it real.
But then she started going, Aunt May, because they all call me Aunt May because they can't say Meg. So it's Aunt May. Yeah. Aunt May.
Your face lights up when you talk about
Oh,
family.
I love them so much.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love them. Because
That's
I almost
awesome.
lost them all. I almost wasn't going to be able to be a part of their lives and definitely not the babies' lives. And my nieces and nephew are the only people in my bloodline that have not seen me high. I was sober for each of their births.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So then they get older, that's a pretty cool thing that you can
It's
share
our
with
thing.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. If you had to sum up all you learned so far, and give that information to somebody and tell somebody, about that, what would you tell them? What would you sum up?
I would just say, like, there's always hope. There's always more to learn. We never have all of the answers. And that it's a beautiful life if you allow it to be. Those are the things that I really kind of push to people, because, again, I think that state of hopelessness can, no matter what it comes from, can really hinder people, thinking you have all the answers and that there's nothing else to learn and that you can't learn from, like, I can still learn from somebody who has a day sober. You know what I mean? I think that it really just, it hinders people.
It does.
And the fact that, like, you have to allow life to be beautiful. You can really get in your own way, like I used to get in my own way, and still sometimes do. The days that I feel like my head's gonna explode, I have to remind myself, like, I'm the one that's in control of my mindset. Nobody else is. So I have to shift my perspective and allow things to be beautiful and start focusing on the good stuff. And it makes a world of a difference. So, yeah.
I love that. So if people want to reach out in reference to Promont, what can they do? How can they contact you with that?
They can call me.
They can call you?
They can call me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Your number's out there?
215-429-9357.
We'll insert that right here in the video.
Listen, I give my numbers posted on LinkedIn. I'm very, willing to give my personal number out.
Yeah, me too. I used to write it on the bathroom wall and just,
you stop it.
but I never got calls.
Different.
But if they want to reach out in reference to Promont and get some assistance, get some information, whether it's for themselves or for a loved one or whatever the case may be, they can reach out. We'll put your personal number on there. That'd be great. What about for the Grace Project? How can they contact you?
Same thing. Same
Personal
thing.
number?
Yeah, if they're looking to volunteer, then their contact would be Kev Nichols. He's our volunteer coordinator. If they're looking to partner for something, for some sort of outreach or like fundraising, then Madison Thompson would be the contact person.
Oh, I love the two of them.
Oh, I love them so much.
Great.
I love them so. I can't imagine my life without the two of them, and they just care so much about the Grace Project. It's such a beauty, and we're lucky because somehow, like, we all fell into that place in that relationship, and they're some of my best friends. I talk to them about everything. Like, I was just with Kev last night talking about just life stuff for a couple hours, then on the phone with Maddie for like an hour after. They're really special people, and I'm so blessed to have them by my side. I don't know how I used to manage Grace Project without them, but yeah, they're my left and my right hand. I say it all the time.
And it's nice to have that.
Yeah.
You learn that. You learn that with that. And it's good. So, and they can follow you on social media, thegraceproject.pa.
Oh, I think it's like
Grace Project, yeah.
Project.pa.
You'll find it.
There's dots and
You'll find
Grace
it.
Project and
You'll
PA.
find it.
It's
out there.
It's out there.
And if they want to volunteer, they can send some information in off your website.
Yep, volunteer
form
form on the website.
Every Thursday night, you're out in Kensington.
Every
doing
Thursday
outreach.
night. McPherson Square.
All right. Megan, I love you. You are one of the most amazing people that I have met. You are one of the people that makes me smile and laugh the most. And
We always have fun together.
We do.
And we don't see each other enough. It doesn't make sense.
Or it could just be a simple text and where we pick on each other for 2 minutes.
And it's good.
That's
it.
It's cool.
Yeah. And then we see each other and it's like nothing's changed. It's good.
That's the way it should
love
be.
It, yeah.
Well, I am so glad you're still here. I'm so glad you're a part of my life. I'm so glad you're a part of everybody else's life. You're doing some amazing things. Keep being strong, keep being you, and do me a favor. Do something with that hair, will you?
Do something with that hair.
Shush.
Turn your head around.
No.
Show everyone. Turn
hey,
your head
everybody.
around.
Thanks very much for joining us today. This is Britt James on USALA Media with Be a Voice. Remember, whatever you stand for, be a voice. Megan Cohen, thanks for joining us. Bye.